Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati.
I'm Oji Akpe.
Our next guest is the Group Managing Director of Sahara Power Group, owners and operators of Ikeja Electric and Egbin Power PLC. Joining us this morning to dissect the Nigerian Electricity Industry, aspects of the power privatization process, and other critical issues in this sector, power generation, distribution, and the challenges is Kola Adeshina. Kola, welcome to the morning show.
Welcome,
Good
Ruben.
to see you. You're looking really prosperous.
Oh, I wish.
I like that.
Well, of course, you're prosperous.
I
aren't you?
wish.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you
Let's
so
start
much.
with the power sector. The whole idea of unbundling NEPA, as it then was, or PACN, the successor company, was to ensure greater efficiency in terms of the generation, the transmission, and the distribution of electricity. But in terms of, in spite of the emergence of GENCOs and DISCOs, we're still at the same point. What is the situation? What is happening? Why have you guys not been able to make a difference as private sector investors?
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate the invite, first and foremost. Why are we here? Oftentimes, when conversations like this are held, I always go back to the story of creation. At the point of creation, God Almighty did not create man first. What did he do? He created all those enablers to make man live and survive. So he went through a process. He had a plan. He followed that plan to the letter. Having done that, he rested. Unfortunately, within the power sector, we are where we are because of the fact that the key enablers to guarantee stable, regular, safe electricity, they're not there. And until they're there, we're just going to be scratching the surface. I'll give you an example. In 2013, when we took over Egbin Power Plant, the idea for us was to ramp up capacity to full level in 2 years. We met Egbin doing 400 megawatts at the point of takeover. Within 2-year period, we were able to take it to 1,100 megawatts. Huge investment made, huge investment realized. But in terms of evacuation of the power, we started having issues. First was gas. Gas wasn't readily available. And without gas, a power plant is a museum. It can't generate. It's just sitting down there, idle. Because we had huge issues of vandalism of pipeline. We moved away from there. The Transmission Company of Nigeria had limitation of evacuation. We eventually got ourselves into a position where today we're talking of stranded capacity, where distribution companies are not able to take the full power readily available to be dispatched. So here we are, day one, 400 megawatts. 2 years after, 1,100. Unfortunately, the enablers to support it, to make it continue to grow, were absent.
Well, what I get from what you're saying is that, supply of electricity is a value chain.
It's a value chain.
And if something goes wrong in that value chain, then there will be problems. But what are these key enablers?
Yeah.
And who is responsible for not providing those enablers? Government?
Okay, enabler number one is not what most people assume to be the key enabler, is for you to have a detailed plan. You must have a purpose-driven, credible, consistent plan of action that you will follow to the letter.
Okay.
On the basis of that, then you now start to activate that plan. The second factor is liquidity. Liquidity can only be engendered by the right price. As we speak today, the cost of generating electricity is higher than the price, the tariff. So what incentive is there for a private sector-led electricity sector to continue to inject more capital in a sector that has problem of cost structure against the price? That's another challenge.
No,
The third
let's
one.
dwell on price a bit, tariff.
Okay.
In 2015, there was MITO, right?
Yep.
And that was supposed to protect both the consumer and the discos and the gencos.
Yep.
Now, what's the problem with MITO?
The problem with MITO, first and foremost, if you look at MITO, MITO is a document premised on cost recovery. Cost recovery is premised on the right price. It's the first item. Because the investment and investor can only be activated with the right price. If the price of the commodity is wrong, it's wrong. I'll give you an example. I like the fact that you are familiar with MITO. In the MITO document, the exchange rate embedded in that document was 199,
Okay.
2015. Just shortly thereafter, we had serious economic volatility that took the exchange rate to where? 360.
Right now.
It even went as high as 500. Now, if I've been given a structured price to serve you and make Nigeria electrified, and the reality in the marketplace has moved, naturally the price should move. But did it move? No. So an expectation, the legitimate expectation of the consumer is for him to be electrified. The legitimate expectation of I, the investor, is the right price.
But you see, the ordinary electricity consumer listening to you in Nigeria will probably read the conclusion that investors in the power sector are greedy. Because even now, I mean, I'm complaining, and I know many Nigerians who are complaining that we pay too much for electricity, and that in fact, you guys, rather than give us meters, you do estimated billing. And you just look at the color of the paint of the building, and you slam heavy tariffs, you know, even in violation of MITO. But you as an investor, what do the discos, what would they consider the right pricing, to use your phrase, for the benefit of Nigerians who may be interested in this subject?
The right price of any commodity is relative. Relative to time, relative to exchange rate, because my own product is largely Forex denominated. It's not a Naira-based economy I'm running. My business is Forex denominated, so invariably it's tied to the foreign exchange. Now, again, you find within the MITO document, there is a last component there in terms of the principle that drives it. It's called the social and political objective. Now, if government has taken a decision to protect that social and political objective as against the economic objective that makes it available, the product available to be consumed in a manner that would engender industrialization, productivity, creativity, and the rest of them, if there is a mismatch, somebody needs to step in. Meaning government is willing to take a shave of that price and provide the resources, the amount, the financial requirement for that gap.
But at the moment, government is even subsidizing the discos. Isn't that the case?
Well, a subsidy...
because you people have been talking about debts, government is owing you. I know that's an aspect of it, you know, that government is not paying, government is indebted to the discos. But the average Nigerian, I'm repeating this, is saying that electricity is even overpriced as it is, and we don't even get the electricity regularly. But let's go beyond theory. I go back to my question. How much do you think is the right price for unit of electricity supplied?
Well, really,
what are the discos asking for from electricity consumers?
The discos cannot ask for a cast in stone price, just like I said, because there are factors and assumptions behind the tariff anytime you see it. The first one is inflation rate, exchange rate, the interest rate, weighted average cost of capital, the gearing ratio. All those are elements that serves as input into the price. But I come back to something very important. This is very key. Today, the average worker in Nigeria is agitating for increase in minimum wage. Why? Because the cost of living has gone up. If the cost of living is going up, and it's obviously going up, and the salaries, the wages seem not to be matching the cost of living, there's an agitation on that side. I come to you in your own profession. The newspapers. How much were we buying newspapers years ago? 50 naira, later 80, 100, today 250, 300. So if the cost of production of newspapers are going up and prices are being adjusted accordingly, then what are we saying about electricity? Now, everybody says, we want more power, but we can't pay for it. Meanwhile, your generator at home, the diesel price previously was how much? What is the current price for diesel? So if you can self-generate by fueling your generator based on the new price in the marketplace, then what is wrong with the utility increasing the tariff in accordance with the marketplace?
I get your capitalist argument. But let me draw your attention to something else with the supply of electricity in Nigeria. Yeah. Many Nigerians are saying that even if they must pay the right price for electricity, they should have meters, right? So that, they pay according to consumption. Many are aggrieved that, look, the discos have not brought any greater efficiency because the discos cannot even provide meters. They do estimated billing, right? There is no proper differentiation. Don't you think that all of that should come first in terms of how you engage the consumer, rather than this capitalist talk about people paying the right price?
Yes, what's going on with the metering system, really?
Okay. Let me speak to metering. In 2013, we signed a performance agreement with the government to meter 1.7 million customers. As of today, the sector, the investors, we've been able to do 88%.
How many percent?
88.
Okay.
1.49 million Nigerians have been metered since we took over this asset. One. Two, the population of Nigeria in 2013 was 171 million. The population of Nigeria today is 200 million. So you have a population that is increasing. You have the cost of production that is increasing, but you seemingly have a static pricing methodology. And yet, you have this expectation that, no, you need to provide, something needs to activate investment. Investment is not activated by hypothesis of, yes, we will respond. No, I will have to put the price as it is today and then make the commodity available because your satisfaction is my own well-being. My business can only thrive when the customer is happy. And that's why you will see that in Ikeja Disco, customer care has been made the central focus of our own agenda. The strategic agenda for us is, if the customer is happy, then we are going to be happy. If the customer is unhappy, we'll be unhappy. So we need to make this investment as quickly as possible, but without the right price, it's difficult or impossible to make.
Recently, there was an altercation between the Ministry of Power and the discos, almost degenerating into name-calling. The Minister of Power was saying that, look, we have generating capacity of over 7,000 megawatts, but that discos don't even want to take the power from the generating companies. Now, what is the issue? Is it rivalry between discos and gencos so that, you have this problem of evacuation and distribution?
Okay, let me speak the truth in terms of statistics. When I hear numbers, oftentimes, if those numbers are inconsistent with reality, my heart beats a bit faster. The installed capacity in Nigeria today is about 13,000, not 7,000. If I have an installed capacity of 13,000 and I'm a private sector-led business, naturally I would want to deploy my 13,000. But why am I not deploying my 13,000? Now, there's something we always fail to pay attention to. Industries consume electricity wherever you see a huge capacity being deployed in any nation of the world. Oftentimes we compare ourselves with South Africa. That's our benchmark somehow, some worth, 44,000. Mining is key. It's the driver of capacity availability in South Africa. The steel sector is consuming heavily electricity in this nation. Now, check Nigeria. The industrial activity that should propel electricity development is no more there. Most of these industries are shutting down. The steel sector, that predominantly are within my own franchise area, I'm losing a lot of them. The production cycle they used to have, they don't have anymore. So if the high maximum demand customers are not there to take the electricity, and electricity cannot be stored, I can't just create it and put it somewhere waiting for consumers. No, it has to go somewhere. So if those consumers of electricity that should drive industrial progress in Nigeria are not activated, that's the industries, then there's a problem.
Well, this brings us back to the initial question, which is the key enablers. You've touched on plan and you've touched on price. So what's the next one that you have?
Well, the next one really is for there to be alignment of regulation and policy. You see, the kind of system we're running today in the electricity sector, the power sector, is a bit frightening. And I'll speak to it directly. When you have concepts like eligible customer being pushed, whilst it's nice for us to have customers that are seemingly eligible, all Nigerians are eligible customers. All Nigerians deserve electricity. We all want electricity because that way the quality of life for each and every one of us will be better. So we are all eligible customers. Now, it's when you start to break down systems in a manner as to satisfy one against the other that you have crisis. The system of electricity as we currently have it in Nigeria is one predicated on a grid system where a value chain, which you spoke to earlier, work together to make electricity available for everybody. And in that value chain, part of the recognition of government and the drafters of the MITO, which you spoke to earlier, was that residential consumers of electricity don't have the capacity to pay the right price. Hence, in that methodology, the maximum demand customers, the industrial users of electricity, the commercial users of electricity are paying a higher tariff, which is premium, in order to cross-subsidize you and I. Now you now find a policy that removes those customers from the pool, which has been calculated and calibrated to deliver electricity in an uninterrupted manner, and that there's another pool where those customers are going to be served. The natural implication of that decision is that you and I will have to pay more.
Well, let me take you back to the point you were making about when I said 7,000 megawatts of installed capacity, you said 13,000. And you gave the argument about the slow pace of industrialization. But if you look at the economies of scale, in a country that has over 200 million people, so do you really need to have a thriving industrial sector before you can, make profit, break even? That's one point. The second point is, isn't the problem one of infrastructure? How much infrastructure do you, the investors, have to be able to reach the end users more efficiently?
Okay. To answer you directly, cherry-picking customers, let's put that in a bucket. If I'm going to price electricity the way it's meant to be priced, for all and sundry, there is no need for any cross-subsidy. If the tariff is 100 naira, everybody pays 100 naira, whether you are an industry or you are residential. Then pay a uniform tariff for the electricity you are consuming. However, the wisdom of government, the political wisdom, suggests that, look, there are poor people that seem not to have the capacity or perceive not to have the capacity to pay for electricity. So therefore, let's bring down the tariff for them, and then the difference Let's put on top of those that seem to have the capacity. Now, it depends on the logic of government. If the political logic is for us to industrialize, and that when we industrialize, we create employment, if the political logic is that when we create employment, poverty level reduces, if the logic is that if electricity is available, there will be more innovation and creative skill unleashed to help the nation grow geometrically, then there shouldn't be any subsidy. But if the logic is the other way around, then somebody has to be responsible for the differential. That's one. Number two, infrastructure. What drives infrastructure? It's investment. What drives investment is return on investment. Because an investor's appetite is primarily based on the fact that he wants to put money and he needs a return for him to put more money, again more money, and then more prosperity. The prosperity of a nation is largely dependent on the prosperity of the people. The more the people prosper, the more a nation prospers. So they are all intertwined. But you can't have infrastructure if the infrastructure cannot pay for itself on the long run. However, if I don't want to wear the capitalist hat, like you mentioned earlier, the social contract of the government with the people is for the facilitation, for the enablement, for the support and participation to enable the best of us to come out. Government is looking for the best of all individuals. Government is seeking the best of each and every one of us. So how can you unlock the best in me to support the nation I so much love? In the electricity sector, without being immodest, with the kind of investment we've made, we deserve to be applauded and not condemned. These are Nigerians. We brought our own money into this economy to make this economy great. We don't deserve to be vilified. We want this nation to grow. We've gone elsewhere. We've seen the prosperity of other nations, and we believe we can replicate what we've seen elsewhere in this land.
Well, one of the enablers you talked about, it's about having a plan and projecting forward. And I guess that before, the private sector invested in the electricity sector, you must have had your projections. You must have created room for uncertainties. But now all I hear in the last few months is, Jenkos and Discos just complaining about government. And you've been sounding as if you don't want to accept any fault on the part of the investor.
Okay, I gave you a fantastic analogy at the outset of this program, the story of creation. The only thing Adam and Eve didn't have at the point of creation was this. They had everything. All that they needed, they had. But it's what they did not require, they were looking for. And they messed us up. But let's set that aside. We have our own fault because we are a part of the problem. However, the Yorubas have a say, Oro, Lomo Moko Muruwa.
You have to translate that for our non-Yoruba speaking viewers.
The proximate cause of this problem is what I've just given you. How did we get to where we are? We didn't get to where we are because of the fact that we were stupid, no. We're ignorant, no. We're not patriotic, no. We're not proactive, no. We're not thoughtful enough, no. We're not analytical enough, no. Because at the point of consummating this relationship to foster electricity generation and distribution in Nigeria, well, the view that each party will meet their own obligations. So the failure of a party to meet the obligation is the reason why we're where we are today. The MITO tariff you spoke to earlier, the reviews that we ought to have had in the last 3 years were 5 in number. We've not had any. We had tariff frozen for residential customers. We had a situation where fixed charges were removed I don't know of any cost structure in the world or any electricity sector in the world where there's no fixed charge, but we had it removed in Nigeria.
But the Ministry of Power and the Electricity Regulation Commission propose, an eligible customer framework. The discos don't seem to accept that. Where are the points of this agreement?
It's so simple. I mentioned earlier that in the portfolio analysis of segmenting and stratifying the sector, you have residential customers, you have commercial customers, you have industrial users of electricity. And each of these classifications, they pay the tariff commensurate to their usage. However, the industrial and commercial users of electricity, on behalf of you and I, as residential customers, are paying a bit more. Invariably, they are cross-subsidizing you and I. Now, the eligible customer concept is one that says that customers of industrial and commercial nature can go directly to the generation companies to buy electricity. The implication of that action is you and I will have to pay more. And remember, please note, time now is 9:15. We are all here. We are not home. So at home, we don't need electricity in the strict sense of the word. Where we need power currently, the industries and the commercial users of electricity. So at home, electricity is not really, strictly speaking, not required, but ultimately it should be required because some people are on leave, so they are home. They should be enjoying electricity. So for you to have the desired electrification of Nigeria, you cannot pull out in a microstructure the customers that are cross-subsidizing and still expect the distribution companies to charge the same tariff to the existing customers if you've not increased the tariff.
But I mean, wouldn't you were talking about industrialization.
Yeah.
You clearly want Nigeria to industrialize. But if the industries, if they can buy directly from the gencos, wouldn't that facilitate industrialization? Don't you see a contradiction in what you were?
There is no contradiction. What I said is the moment you allow that, the natural implication is that you and I will have to pay more.
But don't you have control over, businesses, residential areas within your area of jurisdiction?
We do, and interestingly, part of what probably needs to go out, and it needs to go out very strongly, is the fact that the industrial users of electricity today are seemingly getting 20 hours of electricity, so which is consistent with their production cycle. Now we have few customers of industrial nature that are not enjoying this electricity the way they should, again, because of the infrastructure. Because there is an investment in infrastructure required to deliver power to them. And part of what is being done, because electricity supply is going to be forever. So it's not going to end one time.
Well,
So
I see that discos are opposing a lot of things.
No.
We had a gentleman on this program who was talking about diversification of electricity supply, talking about solar energy, and other sources and all that, to open it up so that, discos don't just exercise a monopoly or even gencos. But why are the discos opposing that, even the gencos? You don't want competition?
Interestingly, competition is that's the lifeblood of business. What makes us greater and better and more qualitative in our service delivery is competition.
You guys have been opposing solar energy,
We
for
are not.
example.
Nobody is opposing diversification. Nobody is opposing even eligible customer in the strict sense of the word. What we're opposed to is you cannot tie the hand of the public utilities and say, run faster. And you have tied my hand. You've put a brake around my feet and you say, you're not moving fast enough. Meanwhile, to others in the same sector, you've given them the free rein. They're not restricted in pricing. They are not restricted in the choice of customer. So they are free to charge anything they want to charge. If you give me that same privilege, my goodness, why would I not take it? All I'm saying is that you've kept me in a regulated world. You're regulating the price of my commodity. You are regulating my behavior. And meanwhile, you've created a seemingly unregulated climate for others within the same space. No. If we're going to go for complete deregulation, let's go for complete deregulation. Let's know that all and sundry, Mr. Ikeja, Mr. Ekodisco, whoever you want to sell your electricity to, enter into negotiation with your customers and ensure that there's an SLA, service level agreement with them, and provide the electricity to them on the basis of the agreement. Charge any price you so wish.
How do you manage? Let's leave some of these issues about regulation and policy. But how do you manage customer relations or customer expectations? I mean, when I look around, I don't think too many people, too many Nigerians are happy with the discourse. We still have, blackouts on a very regular basis. And then, the relationship between your staff, your officials, and the public is not the best. There are regular stories of discourse officials who climb electricity pole, and the neighborhood will come out and say, if you touch anything there, just make sure you don't come down. So there's that hostility.
Yeah.
Okay, there's something the Honorable Minister said his early days as a minister that I really love, and I align fully with him with regards to that remark, that there is a bridge of trust that is required to be crossed between the distribution companies and the consumers. It is that lack of trust that is breeding the reactions that everybody is seeing. However, please, let's step back a little, because there are certain things I probably need to bring to the open space for each and every one of us to evaluate as well. Do you have an idea of the ratio of energy theft in Nigeria?
No, you tell us.
What is it? Actually, that was one of my first questions.
That's your first question. Now, people steal electricity. They bypass the meters, where you've even compelled us to put these meters. The 1.49 million meters we've installed, 50% of them are bypassed as we speak.
But that's a criminal offense.
Oh, it is a criminal.
So what are you doing about that?
Now, what we are doing about it is that we should all now get back to brass tacks. And what is brass tacks for me? It's the value system. Because here am I catch Ruben.
No, don't use me as an example. I don't steal electricity. I pay.
Now, Ruben has bypassed my system. And then he's caught. Okay, Mr. Ruben, you've been caught. Did you bypass? First, he's going to tell me, no, I didn't do it. There is one engineer, one guy I called to help me resolve one problem.
Licensed contractors.
No.
They are licensed contractors.
No. We don't have them in the system. We don't. We have our staff. We have people we've recruited primarily for the purpose of ensuring that there is availability of electricity and managing faults wherever they find them in the system. So you have recruited somebody. You didn't come to us. There you have a problem. Your recruit now takes power directly. There's no calibration, no measurement, nothing. You're just taking electricity directly. Now, Mr. Ruben was caught. And what happens? You are going to call me. You're going to say, Kola, can you imagine?
I was planning to call you.
Aha!
I want you to be giving me electricity free of charge.
Free of charge. So now, and then in Freetown, nothing is free. So here we are. And then so will I prosecute you? Value system in Nigeria? No. I'll say it's Ruben now. He's my friend. Or one big man in government calls me to say, okay, yes, there's an infraction there, we understand, but no, now just let them pay some penalties and the rest of them. It's value system.
But you see, if the power sector is this problematic,
yeah,
why haven't we had some cases of a Genco or a Disco saying, okay, this is not a good investment, and pull out?
Or even
you guys are not pulling out.
Why did you invest?
Okay, has Nigeria been so nice to you? Do you have everything you want out of Nigeria? Hell no. You don't have none of us is enjoying the best of Nigeria as yet. That's where we're clamoring every day that every one of us should rise up to make things better in this country.
Okay.
So I'm not going to lose faith. The only abiding faith I have now, apart from to God Almighty, is to make this nation greater and better. So irrespective of whatever is happening, I'm going to stick it out.
All right,
well, I mean, before we let you go, what kind of improvements would you like to see in the power sector in Nigeria? But don't take the comment from the perspective of the capitalist alone. I think you should factor into it our own interest, the consumers of your product.
Okay, the hope I have regarding electricity in Nigeria is truly one whereby we're going to have 24/7 of electricity everywhere in all the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, where electricity will no more be on the menu of things to do regarding government interfacing with the citizens of this country. My own view and aspiration and desire is that ultimately Nigeria will begin to find and discover herself and become that great nation, well couched in the national anthem, where there will be freedom to innovate, freedom to create, and freedom to make life better for everybody. Electricity is a critical component in making life better. Without it, you can't go far. God Almighty started with light. Why? He needed to see. And for you to see, that is only when you can create. That's only when you can change things positively. There will be electricity in Nigeria.
I want to touch on quickly on the power tapping that you raised. How can that be solved? And do you see technology coming in play to help this power tapping problem fixed here in Nigeria?
Okay, part of what we did at the outset of our investment was the invitation we placed to the USTDA, the United States Trade Development Agency, for them to come in, help audit the system, and give us a plan of action to follow through. And what they gave us was a document with $784 million as investment required in order to make these things happen. Technology is required, but human beings will use technology. It's the mind over matter. If the mind of our citizen is pro-Nigeria, is pro-growth, is pro-development, is pro-everything good, technology, yes, it will help, but the user of technology must be willing to use it in a manner that was going to help humanity. But remember, technology comes at a cost. That cost will be part of the tariff that citizens must pay in order for us to have electricity.
Well, I mean, you said something earlier on that I think is interesting. You said electricity is an important component of the development process. What is the quality of dialogue, that you have, the DISCOs, the GENCOs, and then with the government, the regulatory authorities, to come together and address all of these issues, instead of each group being in its own silo and complaining?
Okay, I've interestingly, I've been at the vanguard of ensuring that we have a systemic conversation to prove that will help the entirety of Nigerians. Recently, thank God, we've had a situation where there's an engagement now, a deliberate engagement with the federal government at the highest level. We started just about 2 weeks ago. We are continuing this weekend, and we hope at the end of it all, this blame game will stop, because blame game doesn't help anybody. Even where you are grandstanding, because it's a value chain, you require the support of the other party, whether you like it or not. So you can't stand alone as an island on your own and believing that I'm okay. If every other person around you is not okay, then you're not okay. And that's the kind of conversation we've begun now.
Nigeria is in a season of political transition.
Yeah.
Many candidates have emerged, presidential candidates, parties are already out there on the field. Yeah. Is there any industry effort to engage, particularly the presidential candidates at the level of policy and all that to improve the electricity sector? Or you guys don't get involved in politics at all?
Well, first and foremost, as an organization, my own organization, we're completely apolitical. We're not interested in any political affiliation or whatever. The project for us is Project Nigeria. The project we're pursuing vigorously is to make Nigeria great and better. That's just the fixation we have in the organization. That's the directive principle we're following to the letter. However, in terms of engagement, the idea for us is commonsensically, all that we need and desire to see, we'll put out there. The detailed plan of the technical, the commercial, the legal, and all the relevant frameworks for success that is needed, we'll put it out there in the public domain. It is our hope, it is our hope, it is our prayer that whoever continues to lead us will lead us using that detailed plan with total commitment.
Well, I mean, you say Sahara Group is apolitical,
Yeah.
but one of your principals is running for governor in Rivers State, you know, and he's a key player there. So is it that, I mean, how do you explain that?
Okay, well, what we don't do in Sahara is that we don't limit the personal aspiration of our people to the aspiration of the organization.
Okay.
We allow individuals in the organization to express themselves in any way they so desire. And my partner in question has chosen to pursue that personal political agenda. It's his own calling, and we wish him the best. But as an organization, no. That's why he's resigned. That's why he has left us. Otherwise, he will still be a part of us and all that. But we're not like that. We're not wired to do that. Globally,
You know, the lines are not so sharply defined.
No.
Usually, in this kind of situation.
No, I can assure you.
Somebody can turn around tomorrow and say Sahara Group is an APC.
No. We are not an APC, we are not PDP, we are not any party. The only party we belong to is Party to Build Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much, Kola, for coming to the morning show.
Thank you.
I'm sure that we'll have the opportunity to invite you again, and if we do, we hope that you will honor our invitation.
It was a
Thank
pleasure
you
to
very
have you here, sir.
Thank you.